Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Focus on DatoCMS course. I am Marcelo Lune, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, marcelo@headlesscreator.com. Feel free to send me an email with any questions you have, comments, ideas for future lessons. Whatever you like, send it to me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Today, I'm going to show you how to work with DatoCMS plugins, and specifically plugins that will make the authoring experience much better for your authors. We're going to play a little bit with the content model. We're going to set them up. This is really focused on you admins, but definitely authors, you'll get a sneak peek at what you can do, and some of you developers as well. We're going to touch on the API Explorer as well. So really, it's for everybody, but really mainly focus on author or admins. Okay, let's jump in. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. There we go. All right. So let's go into, here we are in my project in DatoCMS. And real quick, what are plugins? Plugins are basically a way to extend the functionality of DatoCMS, whether it's extending the functionality of the authoring experience or the publishing experience or the developer experience. It doesn't matter. It's just a way to extend the functionality through plugins. And it works kind of like other plugins work in other CMSs, headless or not, right? Where you extend the functionality. Now, keep one thing in mind. What I'm showing you here today is quote unquote the legacy plugin framework. DatoCMS will be, or depending on when you're watching this, has released a new framework that is more robust. However, this legacy plugin framework and plugins will still work when they release this new framework. So keep that in mind, that even though they may be a new framework, all these plugins will still work. Today, I'm going to show you 7 plugins, so quite a bit of plugins. I do encourage you to actually go and browse all the plugins as an administrator. Maybe sit down with your authors and explain, hey, here are the possibilities that we have. So let me show you. If you go into settings, this is for your admins, right? You're going to go into settings, you're going to go into plugins, and then under plugins here, you're going to have probably nothing installed, most likely. If you click on the plus at the bottom, this is where you actually have the plugin marketplace, where you can actually search for a variety of plugins. Let's say you want to search for like a rating plugin, and here you have a star rating editor, which we're actually going to show you that. Then it's very easy to install. You look at a plugin, you go, okay, this is a cool plugin. Most plugins will link to their GitHub page. So some of them, let's see if this one, there you go. So this one takes you to the GitHub page where you can learn more about that plugin. They give you more information. You actually have the code there if you want to, but you don't need any of that to install it. All you need to do is click on install and it just installs it for you. And it's literally 2 seconds. Now, I've installed already, and these are the ones that I'm going to cover with you today. Conditional fields, country and US selectors, hidden fields, read-only fields, star rating editor, and type list editor. Don't worry, we're going to go into each and every one of those. But I wanted you to see where you install them and where you can browse and add more. Of course, you can create your own plugins, which I highly encourage, specifically for your own company, so that way you can customize that experience more and more for your authors. Okay, so let's jump in and let's start with the first plugin. But before I do that, I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. I feel the throat a little bit dry there. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go into models, and the first plugin that I'm going to do, let's go back to plugins. The first one is going to be the conditional fields. Have you ever thought, wouldn't it be great to be able to toggle a bunch of fields on and off, so if we don't need to show them, or if the author doesn't need to see them immediately, they don't see that. They're not overloaded by a bunch of fields, right? Well, guess what? That's what Conditional Fields plugin does. So let's look at that. Let's go into what we're going to do is I have a very simple content type. Author has a first name, last name, address details, and contact details. Now, address details and contact details, if you notice, it's a modular content type that points to a block. So if we go to the blocks library, it just points to an address block and a contact block. That's it. Simple stuff, nothing crazy. So what I'm going to do is for this author, I'm going to create an entry. So let's just go there and create an entry. And now look, as soon as we create the entry, we see address details and contact details. But let's suppose that the author only needs to see first name and last name, and it's rare that they're going to add address details and contact details. So why show them this if you really don't have to? Just don't show them this, and if they want to, they toggle them open. So let's do this. We'll say, we'll just add Marcelo Lewin. I'll just create it. We'll click on save. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, with the Conditional Fields plugin, what we'll do is we're going to go into settings, models, right here, and we're going to add a new field. And we're going to call this field show author details. And the field is going to be a Boolean. This plugin uses a Boolean type. So we're going to say Boolean. I'm going to say show author details. Then we're going to go to presentation. Then we're going to go to insert add-on, and you see right here, conditional fields. When you do that, it's going to ask you, okay, when they toggle this, which fields do you want to show? Okay, now I have the IDs already, and I'll show you where to get them. But what it's asking you here is, which fields do you want to show in this content model? But I need the field IDs. So I'm putting them in here, address and contact details. I'll show you what this show slave fields when this field is false, what that does, I'll show you later. But I'm going to click on save right now. Let it save. I'm going to take the show author details and put it above here. Now, where do you get the ID for the fields that you want to hide? Well, if you go into, for example, edit field, right here is your field ID. Contact details, right there is my field ID. So you can see we have, we said this was address and contact details. So if we go back to this presentation, address and contact details. Make sure, because I ran into this issue, that there's absolutely no space in front of this, because if you do that, it won't work. Just keep that in mind. Very important to know. Okay, so now let's go to content and let's create a new record. And you already see it. Check this out. Most of the time, let's pretend our authors are just going to enter first name and last name, but there is that exception that goes, oh, for this person, we're going to need some author details. So then they can toggle it on and boom, it shows it. Now on the back end, it makes no difference. This is purely a front end on the authoring experience. On the back end, it still stores null if you don't enter it because we made it optional. Now, if you made it required, of course, this wouldn't work, right? Because it would give you an error. In other words, when you save it, it's going to say, well, you've got to enter whatever it is you have to enter. But I made it optional here. So this is a great plugin because you can then start customizing. Like imagine show author details or show author favorite colors, I don't know, whatever it may be, right? But you can start customizing it and present a very simple screen to your authors without overloading them all at once, and let them choose when they want to. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I want to show you the opposite of, instead of show author details, is hide author details. So how do you do that? If we go back for the same plugin, if we go back to settings, yes, let's discard this. We'll go back to settings. We'll go back to show author details. We'll say edit field. And under presentation, we'll say show slave fields when the field is false. So if I do that, I'm going to change the name of this to hide author details. So we'll click on save. Now the difference is, right, when we go to content, you can see that it's showing by default. And if they don't want to, they could hide it. So that's what that toggle is for, is a kind of like the reverse functionality. Okay, so that's the Conditional Fields plugin. I'll go back to here, and of course you can review this later in the on-demand version if you have an account. But under the plugins, that was Conditional Fields. Okay, all right. So now let's move on to the next one. And I'm going to do these two plugins because it's by the same plugin creator together, because it makes sense to do them together. These two plugins are the country selector. There's two versions. I picked the latest version. and the US state selector. So let me explain what that is. Let's go to content and let's add an author. We'll say John Doe, and we'll say new address. Now notice that we have address, city, zip code, state, and country. So for state, I have to put CA and then USA. But another person, another author may end up putting, well, here I did say only 2 characters, so they can't. But for the country, they may put USA or they may put United States of America. And now we have kind of a mess going on here. So these two, let's discard this. We're going to go back to settings and we're going to go to models. Okay, let's make sure we got this. All right, so what we could do, I'm going to go to the blocks. Remember, this is a block. I'm going to go to address and I'm going to add 2 fields for the state selector and the country selector, which will give you a pull down menu of all the states and all the countries, right? And the state is the one in, obviously, the states of the United States. The countries is all the countries of the world. I'm going to add 2 new fields. I'm going to leave this state and country so you can see the difference. But I'm going to add a field. Now these, to display this pull down menu, you have to use it as a JSON. So I'm going to say, we're going to call this one, we're going to call state menu so you see the difference. And under presentation, you're going to select DatoCMS US state selector. Okay. We'll click on save. And what I'm going to do so you can see the difference is I'm going to put it right next to the state. And now I'm going to add the other plugin one, which is country. And before I do that, another sip of water, if you don't mind. Okay, it's another JSON type. We'll say country menu. Presentation, default editor, it's going to be country selector. Click on save. Okay, so we did that. So now what do? Let's go create an entry now. Let's go back to content. Let's create a new record. We'll say John Doe, and you'll see immediately address, city, zip code. Here's the old way of doing the state, and here's the new way where I would type in California or select California. Here's the old way of doing the country, and here's the new way where I would go United States of America. There we go. So this, obviously, from the authoring perspective, is much better because they just select the right one all the time and it standardizes on your entries, right? So very important to do that. Let's go ahead and save this. And now let's go look at the API Explorer and let's see what the developer would get and the difference between this field type, which is a text, and this one, which is a JSON. Let's see what it's stored. So we're going to go to the API Explorer. Let's go ahead and remove this. We'll remove that. We'll open up Explorer. We'll go to all authors. Let's pick first name, and then we know that it's address. And then all I want is state and state menu, those two, and then country and country menu. Let's run this and see what happens. Okay, here you go. Here we go. We said John, we picked only the first name. Let's pick the last name too. Let's rerun it. John Doe. Now notice, right now we have, for the address, we have state the old way. That's just a string CA. But the new way is a JSON object made up of a name, California, and alpha code, CA. And then the same with the country. Here we just have, for the old field name, or the old field, it's just country USA. But for the new one, it's a JSON object made up of a name and the alpha 3 code, okay? So I think this standardizes things not only on the front end, makes it easier for the developer not to, or I'm sorry, the author not to have to guess, do I put in USA, do I put in United States of America, do I put U.S.A? I mean, right? They just select it with a pull down menu, and it's that easy. Now, of course, some of you may say, well, can I just create a content type that references that content type? But then you have to create all the entries for that, which is okay if that's what you want to do, because then you can maybe add metadata to each of those entries. You add a lot more, maybe you add a flag, there's a whole bunch of things you could add, right? Like a state flag or a country flag. You can add location, geolocation on a map, all sorts of stuff. But this is a quick and easy way of providing a good authoring experience and a standardized developer experience on the back end. Okay. So that's plugin number 2, although really it's plugin number 3, right? Because I showed you 2 plugins in there by the same manufacturer or the same developer. Alrighty. So let's go back to, we'll go ahead and close this. Let's go back to here. The next one, oh yeah, the next one is one of my favorite ones that I really like. And let's pretend we want to allow an author to be rated, how good this author is for, I don't know why, but we'll just pretend we do that. So let's go into the settings. We'll go into models, author, and let's add we'll add a new field and we'll make it a number, okay? And we'll call it, it's an integer number, and we'll call it rate this author. Alrighty, now for validation, we're gonna give it a range and it'll be between 1 and 10. Let's click on save. Now let's go and create an entry. So actually, we don't have to create an entry, we'll just edit one. We'll go to me, and okay, rate this author right there. But look, notice, field must be between 1 and 10. Well, I'll put 20. Okay, obviously that's wrong. I'll put 1.5. Well, that's wrong because it's an integer. I mean, you can just, an author would get really frustrated trying to create and enter the information here. Let's put 5. We'll click on save, okay? Now let's go back to the content model because we installed the plugin, and I'll show you the plugin that we were talking about. These are the other 2 plugins that we just did. This one is the start rating plugin. So now we're gonna go into the model, author. We're gonna go into the rate this author field, and let's put it over here, up there. I'm gonna click on edit, and then I'm gonna go into presentation. And instead of default editor, we're gonna say start rating editor, and watch this. Now you do have to, this is the only thing I kind of don't like, is even though already I'm validation set between 1 and 10, you still have to put a maximum here. So we'll do that. Now you can change the color of those stars. This is only for the authoring experience, it has nothing to do with the front end. So we're gonna make it some sort of red. Okay, so I just saved it, perfect. Now let's go to content, and look, isn't that much nicer? I think so. If we go to John, we'll say, hey, John is a 9. Perfect, look, there's no confusion, very easy for the authors to figure out how to fix this. We'll click on save. So what does this look like on the back end, right? What does the developer get? Well, let's check it out. We're gonna add, let's get rid of address here. And we're gonna add rate this author. And let's run. And look, we just get the same thing as before because it's just an integer field. The front end is just a representation in stars, but from the back end, it's just storing an integer. So I think that's really neat, much better than the author guessing what do they do. Very visual, really nice way to do that. Okay, so that's the star rating. The next one is let's go to settings, plugins. The next one is read-only fields. Now imagine, and I've done this in many integrations, where we are integrating, for example, let's say DatoCMS to Salesforce. For whatever reason, Salesforce is feeding DatoCMS or vice versa, and you need a Salesforce ID in there, right? And for some reason, you need your authors to be able to see that Salesforce ID, so that way they can verify whatever, but you don't want them to change it because that's being inserted by Salesforce. How do we do that? Okay. So why don't we go to models, we'll go to author. We're gonna go ahead and add a field. We're gonna add a new field. We're gonna call a text field, single, and we'll say Salesforce ID. We'll do that, we'll just leave it like that. We'll save it. Now I'm gonna go to content, And I have to enter it, right? Because we don't have any integration right now to feed the content into that field. So I'm going to go ahead and put something. So I'm going to put in here alpha 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alrighty, so we'll say, well, that's the ID coming from Salesforce. So SF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. And let's go to the other one. So when we run queries, we can see alpha bravo 1, 2, 3. Yeah, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. So we pretend the system fed that, right? Now, I'm going to go back to settings. In Salesforce ID, I'm going to say edit. I'm going to go down to presentation. And in here, I'm going to say read-only fields. I'm going to click on save. Now watch what happens if we go to content, Marcelo. This is read-only. There's nothing. An author cannot touch this. They can look at it, and it may be important for them to look at it. It may be a reference field that they need to see, but not touch. I love this because this allows us to show them information that they can't touch or edit or break. And like I said, a good example is system integration, right? Integrating DatoCMS with some other system, but you need that field there for whatever reason it may be. So if we go in and create a new record, obviously Salesforce ID is going to be empty and they can't enter it. So I'm going to put, empty SF ID. That's first name and last name. We'll give this person a 10. And yeah, let's hide that. So click on save. There you go. So Salesforce ID is null, but now let's pretend it went to Salesforce, it did whatever it did, and Salesforce came back and put an ID there. Now it's integrated, and it's perfect. All right. So that's read-only fields. The next one is kind of related. It's called hidden fields. So let's go to settings again, plugins, and it's hidden field. So like, what's the difference between the read-only and hidden field? Well, there's a big difference, right? Read-only shows you, but it's read-only. Hidden field, it's a field that exists, but it's not shown to the author. So for example, let's pretend that the Salesforce ID is needed in the content model for integration purposes, but nobody really needs to see it. That's fine. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to go to edit because I already installed the plugin. And under presentation, instead of read-only fields, we're going to say hidden field. We'll click on save. So now when we go to content and we'll look at here, it's gone. It's no longer there. I can change this and it's still no longer there, right? It's gone. However, when we go to the API Explorer and we'll say Salesforce ID, you can see that it does exist. This is an entry, right, that we created, but it was already in read-only mode, so we couldn't enter it, but it exists. So the beautiful thing about this hidden field plugin, which I really, really love, is it allows me to add extra fields in the content model that are needed for a variety of reasons that an author may not need. But maybe they're needed for integrating into other systems or flags for something else. It doesn't matter. It allows me to add them, hide them from the authoring experience. It doesn't confuse the authors. They don't know, like, what's Salesforce ID? Why do I need to know that? And everybody's happy because the developer gets the info they need, and the author is not even bothered with that info. So I think that's a great plugin right there. Okay, and then finally meaning that finally the ones that I chose. There's a whole bunch more. People create them all the time. So again, I encourage you to go and explore more. But finally, what I want to show you is called a typed list editor. So I'm going to go again to plugins, and it's this one, typed list editor. And just so you know, most of them will tell you which field you need to install the plugin on. Like for example, the Conditional Fields only works with Boolean type fields, but the typed list editor works with JSON type fields. So it does tell you what you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to go to the model. I'm going to go to author. I'm going to add a new field, and I'm going to call this, and this is going to be a JSON field. I'm going to call this field favorite foods, like that. Okay. And then I'm going to go presentation, and we're going to go under editor, type list editor. We'll select that one. The type is string. It's not going to be numbers. You can, it tells you right here, the type of list, items, possible values, string, and number. It's just going to be string. And then you add a comma delimited list of what those items are. So I already have some items here, which I'm just going to cut and paste. Pizza, hamburger, salad, and fruit. The 4 basics of life, I think. We'll click on save at this time. Okay. Now let's put, yeah, we'll leave it there. Now we're going to go to content. And let's go back to, let's delete these two just to clean things up here. Okay, we'll go to John. Let's close this up. Look, we can hide that. That's nice. See, so the author can go like, I need to get to the stuff quickly down there. Let's hide it real quick. Perfect, right? But here we have favorite foods. It's a pull down menu. Pizza, add. Hamburger, add. Let's save it. Now let's see what does that look like on the backend for the developer. But before we do that, keep in mind you can always rearrange, which is really nice, or delete. So let's add pizza again. Of course, we need to have pizza. And now let's go to API Explorer. We'll go ahead and remove all these two, and we'll say favorite foods. We'll go ahead and run it, and there you go. It's an array. It stores it as an array with the items in the array in the order that they were placed, right? So if we go back, I'm going to open this in a new window. I'm going to leave this here so it makes it easier. Let's go back here. So if we do this like that and save, now if we rerun this, pizza should be first. And there you go. So of course, if we go back and add salads. Now, this doesn't stop you from adding multiple of the same. So if we click on save, so keep that in mind. It would be nice for this plugin to know, or at least to have an option when you install it that says, do you want to allow dupes or not? Because now when we go to this, we should see multiple. Let's click on, yeah, and you see pizza, hamburger, salad, salad. Okay. Alrighty. Yep. So remember to go to, well, that's it. That's pretty much it for the plugins that I wanted to show you. I wanted to give you a taste of the available plugins. Remember to go to settings, plugins, and click on plus, and then start looking at all the different kinds of plugins. And don't be afraid to experiment. It's kind of fun, actually. But that way you get to discover new ones that your authors may be really grateful to you for. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to get your free account at headlesscreator.com. And if you have it already, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm almost going to hit 1,300. Who knows? Maybe just got a couple of new users right now. Maybe already hit 300. I should be celebrating. So anyway, thank you so much. Today, for those of you watching live, it's Friday. TGIF. Enjoy the weekend. For those of you watching on demand, try to make every day Friday for you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for many more focus on DatoCMS lessons coming up very, very soon. So until the next lesson, have a great one, everybody. Cheers.